Welcome to Ouch. Was that a ghost? This podcast may contain graphic material, which some listeners may find disturbing. Listener discretion is advised.
Help me.
Now that we covered that, here's your host, Liz.
Welcome back to Ouch, Was That a Ghost? Today's going to be a short one because I still kind of feel like junk, but I didn't want to put out no episodes 2 weeks in a row. And just a heads up, today's episode does touch on the murder of adults and children, so if that's not for you, I'll see you next week. We've all heard about the Salem witch trials in 1692 and 1693 when mass hysteria caused hundreds of people to be accused of practicing witchcraft, with many of them being put to death. But did you know that about 200 years before then, over in Europe, men and women were being accused and tried for lycanthropy or being werewolves, with many of the accused being brutally tortured and executed? The courts claimed that these men and women were transforming into werewolves and eating people, including some children. This was not for a few years like the Salem witch trial. These type of court trials spanned over the 14, 15, and 1600s. The actual number of people accused or executed are unknown, but it's said to be up there. Some speculate it was a few hundred people, while some say it was about 30,000 people. So werewolves, although we can't be sure when and where the werewolf lore began, some scholars cite the Epic of Gilgamesh, which was a Mesopotamian story from around 2100 BC. In the writing, the hero Gilgamesh abandons a love prospect because he learns that she had previously turned her lover into a wolf. Another early mention of werewolves is found in Greek mythology, in the story of Lycaon. When King Lycaon fed Zeus some meat that he had disguised as animal meat that was actually human meat, Zeus found this out and turned Lycaon into a wolf. Lycaon being the root of lycanthropy, or turning into a wolf. And in the Nordic writing of Volsungs, a father and son found magic pelts that turned them into wolves. They went on to go on a murdering spree that ended when the father attacked his son, almost killing him, but somehow, I guess, a nice raven intervened and saved the boy by giving his father a leaf to heal his son. I don't know, don't ask any questions. Historians say that the fear of werewolves was growing in the medieval time, with the religious fear and superstition running wild, and that this was how a person's moral transgressions were outwardly affecting them as they transformed. Poems and stories were being written about werewolves, warning against being immoral. And in modern cultures, we see werewolves like in Scooby-Doo, Teen Wolf, Harry Potter, how they transform when the moon is out. And they transform into this blood-hungry creature that usually wake up naked, unaware of what happened the night before. The way to become a werewolf is to be bitten. But back in early Europe, they had other ways that they claimed that werewolves came to be. When the witch trials were passing through Europe, claims that people could morph into animals started this craze that can almost be seen as a subsection of witchcraft. These trials accusing people of lycanthropy were mixed with accusing them of witchcraft, saying that they were wolf charming or wolf riding. Like the Salem witch trials, these people were just accused of pretty much anything. Like if somebody couldn't get pregnant, they were like, oh, it's because he's a werewolf. Or, oh, your tomatoes didn't grow, must be a werewolf. Just like everyday issues that could happen, and then they were to blame. Like it's raining, must be that darn werewolf. Like some witch trials, not in Salem, common misconception, those found guilty of being werewolves were often being burnt at the stake, often with a sack of gunpowder around their neck. And a big thing to note, like Salem witch trials, someone benefited. If a person was accused and sentenced to death, after the person was executed, their land went to the king. Many of those that were accused were poor, homeless, outcasts, or they had some kind of religious or political conflict. It's like the Christian pagan headbutting. In the Netherlands, during a surge of witch trials, a 13-year-old boy named Albert Dirks claims that he knew people that could transform into werewolves, and how these werewolves would hunt animals and dance with the devil. And I guess sometimes they'd turn into cats and gather with other cats at meetings. Some of those that he accused were his own family, including his father, Volkert Dirks, and his 17-year-old sister, and his 14, 11, and 8-year-old siblings. His father was brought in and interrogated, but their interrogation wasn't really like, hey, what were you doing? It was a lot more torture-based. And after he was, quote-unquote, interrogated, his father confessed that, yes, the devil made me a werewolf. The family's 17-year-old daughter was also brought in, and after her, quote-unquote, interrogation, she confessed to having met up with witches while in wolf form. The father and daughter, as well as some others accused, were executed, and the other children of the Dirk family were just whipped and set free because of how young they were. One of the other earlier, more well-known cases was in 1521 when two Frenchmen, Pierre Burgot and Michael Verdun, these two men were shepherds, like farmers. They were charged with murdering multiple children. They didn't deny that they did it, and they went on to offer more information. They claim that they have been werewolves. Pierre said he's been a man/wolf for 19 years, and how this all started when he made a pact with three men in black hooded cloaks. The pact being that if he renounces God, doesn't go by anything holy, like no churches, holy water, and Pierre agreed. And some say he kissed, some say he shook the cloaked men's hand in agreement. But he later did say that the robed men's hands felt like corpses. Verdun and Pierre both received a special ointment from the men. Once they slathered the ointment on, they claimed that with this they grew hair and fangs, and all these animalistic urges kicked in. And I guess that they could do this so they could be like part wolf, part man. Like they could put it on their top half and just be top half wolf, or all wolf, or wolf bottom only. And once they were transformed into their wolf form, they said that they would hunt and murder adults as well as children. It said that they were responsible for a young boy, a woman, one boy that they ate almost entirely and left only an arm, drinking blood of other young children. And then I guess they started killing in human form too, animals as well as people, just becoming more and more animalistic. And I guess the men over time started interacting with the wolves and even began having relations with the wolves in the area. And it said that when Verdun was taken into custody, he was in wolf form. These two men were tried and convicted and sentenced to death by burning at the stake. Another pretty well-known case was in 1589 in Germany, where Peter Stump, a.k.a. the Werewolf of Bedburg, was a farmer accused of being a werewolf or of werewolfery. There were a bunch of different last names listed for this man, so some think that Stump was like a derogatory nickname given to him, as his left hand was cut off at some point, leaving him a stump. But even if it is, he's a dick, so I don't really care. He was left a widower with two children, a son and a daughter. It's said that over a span of 25 years, he was responsible for terrorizing his community, murdering, eating goats, lambs, sheep, with this insatiable appetite. He's said to have murdered multiple pregnant women, murdering and cannibalizing at least a dozen children, one of them being his own son. He claims that he tried to fight off the urge when it was his son, but could not. As for his daughter, it's said that he had an incestual relationship with her. When he was brought in, he was stripped and strapped to a stretching rack. Well, I guess this was his interrogation. He was brutally beaten, and he eventually did confess to having been dabbling in the dark arts since he was a preteen. And he claims that he met the devil himself, who gave Peter a belt, and that when he put this belt on, some say it's a girdle, and some say belt, so I don't know. I'm just going to call it a belt. And he said that when he put this belt on, it allowed him to transform into a werewolf. Peter was tortured. His skin was removed with hot pincers. His bones were all broken, and the town actually had a pole made to look like a werewolf body, and then his head was chopped off and placed on the pole that was then placed in the center of town to try and deter others from making this deal with the devil. And Peter's daughter was also flayed and strangled. I don't know how this was her fault, but okay. Historians do think that he may have been a serial killer long before the phrase was even known, or maybe he wasn't. And that under duress, he may have said the whole devil pack thing to make the torture stop. By the Renaissance time period, fear and werewolfery seemed to be fading, and stories of them made their way to the Grimm's fairy tales. Not that they're like a nice, flowery fairy tale, but. And in other writings that saw werewolves more as a symbol of human nature versus an actual beast. And they seem to be less feared and more of like a theoretical thing than an actual threat to the people. In 1603, in Bordeaux, an elderly man around 80 years old named Thies of Kaltenbrunn, I'm probably butchering that, was in court, and while he was there, he testified, "Hey, I'm a werewolf, but a good one." And he went on to explain how his pack, known as the Hounds of God, would go down to hell a few times a year to fight witches and demons and to make sure that the crops up above came in good. But he's like, "I gave that up like 10 years ago. I don't even do that anymore." And the judge was like, "Okay, well, how do you transform?" And Thies went on to explain how he used a wolf pelt to change. Well, that's how he used to transform. But now, thanks to transmutation, he only has to breathe in a jug 3 times, and he passes it on to another in his pack, who then goes on to transform and pass it along, and boom, werewolf crew. And he went on to say how he and his pack would go down to hell, hunt, and bring back and cook and eat animals. And the judge was like, you don't have opposable thumbs. And Thies was like, "Oh my gosh, well, we rip it to shreds while we're wolves, and we start the cooking process, and then we turn back before the food is ready. Duh. I just did it." And the judge was like, "I thought you gave up werewolfing like years ago." And Thies was like, "Oh, okay. I'm giving it up right now. This is it. No more werewolfing." And instead of being sentenced to death, the judge was probably so over this guy. He was given 20 lashes and told to like get out of there and don't come back. Which I'm sure if this happened earlier in the werewolf craze, he would have had a very different outcome. There's many theories as to why this came about, like why these people all thought that everyone was turning into werewolves. One of the theories is being that people were suffering from porphyria, which means that they're very sensitive to light, they have reddish teeth, and psychosis, or hypertrichosis, which is a hereditary condition that results in excessive hair growth. So if you think of like Teen Wolf, just hair everywhere. Many of the accused may have actually been serial killers, and maybe this was the only way that the horrible things that these people had done could be rationalized by the community, while some of those accused may have just been easy targets because of their class or their views. Or it could have been a medical condition, lycanthropy. It's a mental health condition where a person believes that they are or were or can be a werewolf or another animal. Or it was just like Salem, caused by superstition, social issues, like religious fear of demonic forces that caused this craze. A lot of those accused were poor immigrants, social outcasts, or suffering from mental health issues. Another theory is that what was happening was ergot poisoning, which ergot, like one of the theories in Salem, it can grow on different grains, but in these European countries, rye bread was pretty popular because of how affordable it was. You could have it and just store it for the winter. The only downside is if it was kept for a while, it can grow this fungus. And with ergot poisoning, people can lose the ability to speak, almost seeming animalistic, having convulsions, looking like the transformation, lose fine motor skills, and develop this insatiable appetite and have all these hallucinations. The theory being that some may have been poisoned unintentionally, and a lot of these symptoms mimic someone transitioning into a werewolf, and the hallucinations that these people or other people around them may have had if they also were eating the bread. There's no actual count of how many people were killed because of these trials, but the werewolf trials are just another example of how dangerous societal fears can invoke this mass craze, and how throughout history, marginalized communities have made easy targets for people. Well, thank you everybody so much for listening. Let me know what you think. Do you think that they were serial killers? Do you think some of them were? Or do you think all of this was just confessions made under duress? Let me know. I would love to hear your thoughts. Bye.
Thank you for listening. If you need more content or just want to help support the podcast, head on over to patreon.com and search Ouch, Was That a Ghost? If you need some snazzy merch, you can find it at crowdmade.com by searching Ouch, Was That a Ghost? If you have a story you'd like to share, you can email it to ouchwasthataghost@yahoo.com. You can also find us on Facebook and all the other social media platforms under Ouch, Was That a Ghost?
Help me.
All links can also be found on ouchwasthataghost.com.